Welcome to Soul-Based Business. I'm your host, Zina Solomon, and we want to welcome you to this interview series where we're going to help you discover your soul's purpose, turn your passion into profit, and create a thriving lifestyle. And to give you a little context on what the purpose of this series is we want to teach you and educate you on the secrets of creating a thriving lifestyle by following your soul's purpose and passion and creating a profitable, purpose-driven business. I have a lovely guest with us today. Her name is Mezey. And Ali has been working in the healing arts for 30 years as a body therapist, family constellation work facilitator, and somatic counselor. Bodies are largely untapped reservoirs of intelligence, and Ali has helped thousands of people access the intricate guidance and healing power of their bodies. Ali approaches any issue from the client's felt experience, guiding them to access previously inaccessible sensation and understanding through the brilliance of the body. She specializes in clearing sexual, emotional, and physical pain due to trauma, family lineages, and cultural inhibition. With an extensive background in dance, theater, movement meditation, and intuitive practices, Ali has a deep love for assisting others to enhance the experience and opportunity of being a body, helping it to be a more comfortable environment, articulate instrument, and more authentic creative expression of self. Ali's practice is based in Los Angeles with clients all over the world. Welcome to our series, Ali.
Thank you so much. It's really exciting to be here with you.
I'm so honored to have you with us.
Thank
And
you.
you and I, like I said, we talked about, the body, tapping into the body's brilliance, the body's wisdom, and all that stuff. And before we jump into that, I want to, if you could share with our viewers, what inspired you to get in the work that you're in right now?
So having and being a body has been a lifelong challenge for me, actually. I injured my body really young. I was a dancer from when I was also quite young. So I've always been navigating its challenges, both with keeping movement, as I got older, keeping the freedom to move. As you probably know and notice, usually children, by the time they hit about 6 years old, they just stop moving freely. And that makes it even more difficult to continue the flow and our connection to our bodies, not just physically and not just the pleasure of movement, but also all the things that our bodies know. They're amazing antennas. And so I just started really young with just keeping that fascination for it, but also dealing with tremendous frustration with feeling the cultural constrictions and my own personal constrictions and fear as I got older, go through puberty, deal with different social contexts. There's more and more constraints and concerns and fears about really being in this visible feeling form that we each have. So it just continued to be all through college. I studied the body from a variety of different angles, from Plato to Freud, and did an independent major called Aesthetics of the Human Form, and then continued to be more and more deeply involved in working with people's bodies, which I've been doing for 30 years. So I've always found it, as I say, just fascinating, endlessly challenging, and deeply rewarding.
Yeah, amazing. So what is your definition of the body's intelligence and body's wisdom?
Oh boy. What a great question. Wow. Okay, so there's no way to encompass the answer to all of that, but I will speak to at least some of that spectrum, because it can be anything from all the autonomic aspects of being a body, where we know when we're hungry, we're cold, we're tired. The body's constantly giving us information just on a physiological level, some of which we're conscious of, a lot of us deny or avoid or bypass. So there's that aspect, which is in itself so challenging, to be constantly listening to what are these basic signals that our body is constantly giving us, and then are we going to honor them or not? So that's one end of the spectrum. There's also somewhere in between that just our social engagement. A great mentor of mine, the late great Emily Conrad, who founded Continuum Movement, would always say, we to the extent we engage with our bodies is the extent to which we engage with the world. So the more information that we're really focused on, paying attention to and receiving in our own bodies in relation to our environment, and how do we feel in relation to people? How do we feel in relation to one person as opposed to another? What is the sense that that's giving us when we come into a room, when we come into an environment? In different professions, we're being informed constantly, depending on what you do, whether you're an accountant or whether you're an actor or whether, you're a CEO. We're constantly reading our environments with our bodies. And some of us become increasingly aware consciously of what that information is and responding to it. And then you and I began a conversation prior to this about the other, perhaps not the other end of the spectrum. I think it's not a line, it's more like a circle, but the spiritual aspect of our wisdom, because the more connected we are to our bodies, at least some of us feel and believe that the more our soul, the more our spirit is able to come through our body, and we're able to receive that information as well. So what I said earlier about the body being like an antenna, it's an antenna for everything from the mundane to the sublime and everything in between. And it's up for us, if people value that, to really learn how to read it and feel it and experience it and express it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful what you shared, like how you defined that. And I'll speak for myself, because in my journey, I felt like I was disconnected from my body.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
because I was so in my head a lot of times. So I wasn't even connected with my body to a point where like I would work out and get injured because I just wasn't connected with my body. So, and I feel for me, it was because, I guess I just didn't want to connect with the pain, I guess. I mean, in retrospect, that's just how I'm looking at it. Like, I just didn't want to connect with the pain, and I was just trying to put pieces together. But what can you share with someone who is not connected with their bodies? Or maybe they're not aware that how would one know that they're connected with their bodies? Let's start there and then see where that goes.
You bring up such a great point, because a lot of people think that because they're very athletic, for example, they're connected with their bodies, which isn't always the case. A lot of people are working out all the time because they're actually in their mind about how they want to look. A lot of dance, for example, can tend to be very much about, creating a line because of how it's going to be perceived. And so when you're moving, there's this kind of almost out of body, can be this sort of out of body experience of seeing or perceiving or imagining the body from how it looks. And a lot of us are really concerned about how we look in the world. So again, there's sort of, you walk into a room and there's sort of this split sense of, rather than feeling, how do I feel in this place with these people? What's my internal experience? We can sort of jump out and have a lot of external projection, really, about how our body is being perceived rather than how we're experiencing it. And you also brought up another point, which is so true, is that so many of us can dissociate from the body because of pain. And I wasn't sure if you meant physical pain, which is a very common reason to kind of pull out of the body or not want to really experience it. But it's also, the body is where we experience our feeling, our emotion, and our sensation. And it also is what holds all our memories and trauma and everything else. So, and shame is a huge one. Lots of people feel a lot of shame about their bodies, whether it's sexual shame or just body image shame, or, you're too fat, you're too thin, or you're whatever. So there's such a battle that is going on within most people that it's easier just to focus on other stuff, and also, of course, we live in a culture where, this sort of Descartesian view that we think, therefore we are, so that has permeated how we live and grow and are educated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And yeah, and to touch on the pain, yes, for me it was both emotional and physical. Like you
Yes.
disconnecting because I just felt like I couldn't deal with it. So you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like I just didn't
Yeah.
want to deal with it, right? And so that was just a way for me to express in a different way. And I literally was running myself down to the ground. You know what I mean? Just
Yes.
because I didn't know better, I guess, you know. But how can someone really connect with their bodies? Like, what are the steps for them to? Because if the body has all, like, our bodies are, like you said, is the antenna for us to receive information. So how
Mhm.
can someone connect with that, you know, deeply or intimately, if you will?
I mean, there's so many people who are offering all kinds of courses, and there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I could say, you could, for some people, for example, you go to a yoga class and that really helps you connect. For a lot of people, they go to a yoga class and they're doing something, again, projecting out of themselves, or they're trying to get as limber as possible without staying in exactly what is happening today as I am moving. Um, so it really depends. There's so many ways in, depending on who you are and what your resources are. But there's also just sitting. I mean, people could do that right now. I don't know if you want me to just like
Sure.
guide people just a little bit. I mean, if you're listening to this and it's so easy again to look at screens, and we completely forget that we're this whole body being that is looking at the screen, in screen culture. I think this is even more rampant an experience. So if you just like, I notice that I'm even, I'm leaning forward and I'm looking at you, and just see, people, if you just want to just even just, see how you're feeling in your chair.
Hmm.
Allow breath to come into your body a bit, you know, and just feel your tush right on whatever you're sitting on and what that surface is like, and move your hips just a little bit if you feel like it. Just enough to like help you feel like what are you sitting on?
Hmm.
What is the texture of that? What does it feel like? If you feel like putting your feet on the floor and noticing that there's this massive earth underneath us all the time. And just by doing that, you just took a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Just allowing the body to receive breath, because so much of the time we're disallowing it to receive it, what it naturally wants to do. And the more we relax, the more the body just naturally releases open to bringing in more breath. And just see for a moment more about bringing your awareness literally down your body towards your pelvis, towards the chair that you're sitting on, or if you're standing, just towards your pelvis. And there might be physical feelings that you come upon in your experience. There might be fear, there might be panic even, of, oh my God, I can't feel. Or wishing you were feeling more, or feeling too much. So much of this is just, being with whatever is there. I mean, so many people talk about that in a variety of ways, but I can feel in myself and also in you, like we've just gotten a little lower. I have a great teacher I highly recommend to people, named Philip Shepherd. He has a website of his name, and he talks all about dropping lower in the body into what he calls the lower nature, which I so love, because we're always talking about the higher nature, and we're always trying to go up and aspire and ascend, and I love this idea that actually it's in the lower nature, meaning in the body, in the pelvis, in the seat of our being, that we can have so much more access to what the body knows and what it's really longing to tell us.
Mm, that's so beautiful because I feel like that's where you're grounded. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know, in my opinion, just how I feel like
Yeah.
when I connect with the lower part of my body, that just like a different, like I believe in chakras. I don't know if you
Yes.
do or not.
Yes, of course, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are like 7 chakras and like, it's sort of like a way of
At least.
at
At
least,
least.
right? Totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it's like a way to connect with the root chakra, right?
Yeah.
Which is the
Yeah.
first chakra of the body, and just like that's like the ground, that's the foundation. Like
Hmm.
where safety is, like where where people feel safe. There, a lot of the human needs are in the first chakra, from what I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
As the chakras elevate up to the seventh chakra, I think, yeah, seventh chakra or higher, then you go up to, like go up, right? And I read a lot about like alignment of chakras and how like chakras are
Hmm.
aligned, and how do you know about, like, how do you discover like your chakra is misaligned, like what's going on with your heart chakra, your solar plexus chakra, like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
like those chakras, right? I read a book by, I forget her name, but the book was called The Wheels of Life. And are you familiar with the book?
I'm not. Uh-uh.
Wheels of Life. I forget her name. It's Dr. something. I forget her name. But she talked about like all the chakras and how to connect with it, and how do you know if there's misalignment, and you breathe into it. She had like all these different types of meditation to like really, it's a really experiential. Like you tap into it. You gotta like go inside of it to tap into
Hmm.
that, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of it is like experiential, it's not intellectual, so it was very cool. Like I learned a lot about myself in that,
Yeah.
like, you know
Yeah.
and it's the feeling, like the sensation. A lot of times we don't trust our feelings because
Yeah.
of past traumas. I'll
Hmm.
speak for myself because that's what happened to me. Like I grew up experiencing domestic violence, right? So for
Uh-huh. Yeah.
me, and I'm sure a lot of people have gone through similar traumas, right? So for me, I doubted myself. Like I didn't trust myself. I lived in an environment where it was always unstable. Like I
Yes.
just didn't know what to expect. Like just a lot of like crazy stuff going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like, seriously crazy shit.
Yeah.
And that really affected my I felt like it affected me because I just it affected me on many different levels. Like I felt like I wasn't worthy. I felt like a lot of stuff. Like I just didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my feelings because
Hmm.
in those experiences, whenever I had an instinct, it kind of didn't work out. And so I'm like, but again, I was young, and when you're dealing with adults that have some challenges, for example, like, and I'm just gonna speak for myself. You can't predict that, right? It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was young and I based a lot of things off of my experience, but I've learned over the years to trust my feelings because my feelings are right. Like I
Hmm.
know I'm a naturally intuitive person, but
Hmm.
growing up, like I just felt like my intuition got hurt somewhere in that
Yeah, I
process.
really appreciate that. I think that's pretty much true for everybody. I do a lot of work with addicts, both drug and sex addicts. And we had a long conversation yesterday about empathy
Mm,
and the environment you're describing. It's bringing up another thing I want to add in, which is that even as you, it sounds like, began to distrust your feelings, you probably became more and more aware of other people's feelings,
definitely.
just as a survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
And so what often happens is our natural, beautiful, sensitive little being selves,
Mhm.
that are experiencing so much stuff, but our bodies are sort of in a state of trauma.
Mm,
So it gets harder and harder to feel oneself, and easier to feel everyone else and everything externally around you.
mm,
So that that's a huge aspect of, can you come back in your body? And you brought up safety, which is a massive um, issue, obviously. And ironically, as you were saying, when we don't feel safe, we tend to leave the body
mhm,
rather than going even deeper in the body,
mhm,
from which we can garner all our resources and really have them to respond from, and the more, martial arts, you sink really low. Animals, they sink really low. They get into their lower nature in order to respond to the world. So anyway, you talked so beautifully about chakras, and I want to bring that in too. Another thing about really feeling your body is that the more you feel it, your chakras and energetic system will naturally shift. And for a lot of people, feeling chakras and energy is so mystified. It's intimidating. It's like, oh my God, I don't know if that's the chakra. I don't know where it is. I don't know where my energy is. I don't know. It's just, it's overwhelming. So again, the beauty of this is that if you just put your focus, or in your hand, even on your heart, or you put your focus somewhere on your flesh, on how do your muscles feel? How does that movement feel when you start to move? Where do you feel constricted? Naturally, your consciousness naturally goes to that place. And you may have heard that expression where the focus goes, the energy flows.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And, when you were talking about the lower chakra too, that is the seat of, as you say, our connectedness to the earth, our connectedness to power, to survival and thriving, and eventually even, the earth energy that feeds our sexual energy and our creative energy. And I believe very much purpose. I mean, purpose is a fascinating thing, because purpose is something that people can view from coming from the soul nature, kind of coming through. And I feel like it also is something that comes up, like to have the experience, to have the energy, and, also the guidance to really live your purpose. To me, feels like it's very much going in both directions, and the more your body is kind of, I hesitate to use this word, but an open channel for that both directions to be flowing and experience, the more that purpose can really flow through and out of us.
Yeah. So when someone gets stuck, what do you feel the reason is the person is stuck?
God, it's so individual. I mean, first of all, I think visibility is a huge thing. I mean, I'm going through that myself. I just put up my new website, and it's kind of terrifying, particularly because, you can't control, in the virtual world, you can't control who's seeing you and how they found you and how they're responding to you. Whereas at least, in pre-internet, you would walk into a room, for example, and at least you would see who's seeing you. Now we have no idea who's seeing us. What are they doing with what they're seeing? What are they doing with my likeness out in the world, or what I'm saying, or what I'm doing? So I think purpose, it's terrifying really to get seen, which doesn't mean that everybody's purpose involves visibility. Some people's purpose is to be communing with nature on a little farm, growing food for their families, or maybe for other people, or, having children and being seen by their children and their partner. It can be, it's not everybody's purpose is about obviously being out in the world and being seen and being heard by the masses, of course. And there's a huge spectrum in between. But I think purpose is complex because it can be tremendously vulnerable. Unless you're one of those people, and I shouldn't say unless, because maybe you're born to be, with perfect pitch, and you're passionate about being a piano player, and from age, 3, that's your purpose, is to bring music to the world. But I'm sure there's all kinds of challenges in that too, because it can be so focused and so clear that it can be very narrowing. And then you have all people's expectations on you and all this kind of stuff. So it's another reason for blockage or difficulty, is people are giving us information constantly about what they think our purpose should be. And we're very vulnerable to that from when we're very young. I mean, how many people have parents who are just like, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do? I mean, a lot of us get messages, of, well, actually, you're really supposed to go to that school, and you're supposed to, we'd prefer, or we want you to be this, or, and so then you're dealing with projections of your family and living out their dreams that were perhaps unlived, so that's another complicated thing. And I think, financially, that's another issue, is like, it can be very frightening to trust and to ensure that what you really want to do will remunerate you enough to live the lifestyle you want to live. So again, there's such a spectrum of issues in that. And part of what I do and what I love about the work I do is that it really is individual, and the body knows. The body knows what that blockage is at any given moment or period in life. And, with a combination of, for example, constellation work, or another modality that I use called walking in your shoes, they're beautiful ways to actually invite the body to answer that question. Today it might be different for you. If we did a session together, it might be different for you than tomorrow, or there might be no blockage, and it might just be timing, divine timing. I see that a lot, and I've experienced it for so much of my life, like so much frustration that my purpose isn't supposedly happening, or I'm not really doing it, when really sometimes good things come to those who wait, and you've got to, really, or a good wine or something, and you just have to wait for things to align, to your inner resources are together and your outer resources, and you can really handle success, because it's challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel like for someone to tap into their body's intelligence and resources, that maybe the first step for them is just to be still and just connect with the body? Or what do you feel is like I know it's individualized, right? Everyone is different, because everyone has different experiences and different history, lineages, all that stuff. But what, like, I guess just for the sake of our viewers, like, what do you feel is the...
So you were going to ask me later on about my free gift.
Yeah.
Which is it's such an oxymoron, free gift. It's like a gift, or it's, so anyway, my gift. Actually not an oxymoron. It's like, it's redundant. But anyway, so a gift, my gift is, I'm going to describe and kind of guide that process. So there's like different ways to do it. I don't know if I should give it away now. I can describe it, but there's some really basic ways that you can invite your body to start giving you more information about that, including, what those blockages might be, or what, if those blockages weren't there, what you'd find out, So I go
for it. Yeah.
I could describe it now.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing to do is to take some pieces of paper. So hold on, there's a couple different issues here, at least a couple. One is that, as you say, there's the issue of, what is my relationship to my purpose? And are there any blocks to that relationship? So constellation work, or family constellation work, people think has to do with astrology. It has to do with the geometry of relationship and externalizing the internal relationship we have with any given thing or person, so that you can externalize it and experience it more vividly than when it's inside and unconscious and whatever. So you can take a piece of paper and you can write your name, for example, in big letters. You can take a piece of paper and write my purpose. You can take another piece of paper that says obstacles, for example. And you have an arrow, so it's clear which direction the paper would be facing if it were a person, for example. So is that clear what I'm talking about? Okay. So if I say Allie on my piece of paper, and I'd put an arrow at the top of the paper, or purpose. And then what you do is you collect yourself, and you sit there for a moment, and you need a bit of a space. So you could do it on a table with small pieces of paper. It doesn't have to be on the floor. But what I like about it on the floor is then you can step on the papers. So, so you place them down on the floor in the relationship that you experience those three things to be. And your body will know. I mean, every time I ask people to place, I usually use colored mats rather than writing on them. The body knows what that relationship is. Currently, in this moment, it will go, because I see people do this constantly. They'll like put mats down. They're going, no, not quite right. No, not. And they move them. And I was like, does that feel right? And they're like, yep, that feels right. For whatever given relationship I'm asking them to externalize. So you place these three things on the floor and you'll already can start seeing information. You know, are you, for example, I don't know if you can see that. Are you on the floor? Are you facing your purpose? Is your purpose next to you? Is it covering you? Are the obstacles, right in your face? Are they kind of hovering over, kind of in a really uncomfortable position sort of next to you? So the body, the soma, which is the living being, the living body being, knows just even biologically what that feels like to have somebody 2 inches away on your right side, for example. It's a position where somebody can actually kill you, throttle you. It's naturally uncomfortable. For most bodies would not be comfortable having that right there. So then if you're, for example, standing on your paper, so first you can just look at what do you see with that externalized relationship, maybe your obstacles are out the door. They're not even there. You feel like they're across the room, or are they hovering behind you somewhere and you have a feeling that paper is behind you, or maybe you feel like it's behind you and you're done with them. That's another possibility. So first you just experience by looking, and as much as you can by feeling where are those things out in front of you, and then resonating with what's inside of you. Then you can start standing on each of the papers. And the more you tune into your body, you can get some really interesting information. And people are always I had somebody in a group, it's kind of interesting. This one kind of obstinate guy who was just like, this is ridiculous, this is magical thinking. And at first it was sort of like, no, it's not. And then I realized, yeah, it is sort of magic. It gosh darn is. It is. And that's part of our bodies are magic, for Christ's sake, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. I've experienced it thousands of times. You can stand on one paper and you literally can feel totally different than when you stand on another one, just because it has another word on it and another designation, and it's what comes to me too is, I don't know if people know, and I'm forgetting the beautiful scientist name, the Japanese scientist who discovered that if you put words on water bottles like facing backwards, do you know that guy?
Talking about, yes.
That if then freeze the water from that particular bottle or place or whatever, that the snowflakes that it creates are different depending on the influence of a word, for example, or a bottle. So something is being transmitted. The people will explain it in all kinds of different ways, and I hesitate to say what it is because it's kind of mysterious ultimately. But I'll tell you, you can get a lot of information that can be super helpful. So then if you stand in these different places, you notice, what am I looking at? What am I focused on? Can I look at myself if I'm standing on my purpose? Am I looking away, having a hard time looking? How do I feel when I'm standing on obstacles? Do I want to punch somebody? Do I want to embrace somebody? Do I want to cry? Am I suddenly feeling really hot? There's information that will come, and the more you feel your body, the more insight you'll actually get from this process. So that's a super short, kind of condensed explanation, but it gives you just a taste of, part of what I do in sessions with people, and what people can do with themselves and each other. Yeah.
That's so beautiful how you
Yeah.
described it. Like, the purpose, your obstacles, yourself. And I'm a visual person, so
There you go. Yeah.
I'm very visual, so I like to see, and I'm also, I like to connect, and you're right, because each word has its own vibration. Like,
Yes,
you're right. It's
it
like,
does. And what's beautiful about this work is I've had, super rational lawyer guys come in and they actually, it makes total sense to them because it can actually, it seems really logical to people.
mm,
So when you're actually doing it, it's a lot less woo than you might think, because again, the body just is like, oh, I know what this is.
mm,
This makes sense to me.
mm,
And for people who aren't visual, it's also super kinesthetic, because you can stand on these things and your body starts feeling things. And some people are super audio, and they'll stand on the different mats and different thoughts will come, or they'll get different images, or they'll hear things, or so it's a beautiful modality for all kinds of different people.
yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. Can you name some obstacles just in case someone gets stuck and they're like, I don't know what my obstacles are? Can you name
Sure.
a couple of?
So here's another one that immediately came to mind just as you were formulating that question. You can also you can do a paper that says mom. You
Mm,
can do a paper that says dad.
mm,
You can do a paper that says money.
mm.
And you can place those down on the floor too.
Wow.
So those are examples. What's mom or dad? What's mom going to think? What's dad going to think? You can place self-esteem. Again, with an arrow, so you see the direction that those things are facing. Like if they were people, what are they seeing? What are they looking at? What are they not looking at? So you
Mm,
really see, what is the relationship between my self-esteem and my purpose, or my self-esteem and myself. Other obstacles, skills. Maybe people don't have the skills they need. I
mm,
mean, that can be a real obstacle too.
mm.
Um, what else? Any particular?
Oh, you're asking me?
Oh
Oh,
yeah, our internet went a little wacko
oh,
for a
okay,
second
got it.
there.
Sorry. Yeah, yeah, we lost a little bit of internet here.
Yeah,
Yeah, so obstacles. Yeah, I like how you said like money, people that we associate with,
yeah,
and all that. And you made me present to something, Allie, like our relationship. And I think a lot of times people don't look at these things as your relationship to something. I don't know, right? Because I don't know
yeah,
how people relate to stuff like that. Like, an obstacle, that's your relation or my relation to an obstacle. So what's that relationship like?
exactly.
My relationship to money? What's my relationship to my mom? What's my relationship to my dad? What's my relationship to myself?
Yes,
What is my relationship to my body, right?
yes, yes,
It's all a relationship, right? And I said this to you, like my mind is very social, and I have like, that's kind of like how my mind thinks, so I like to put things together. But
hmm,
yeah, it's like relationship. Like, what is your relationship to self? What is your connection to your purpose, your relationship to your purpose? Like, and how does that show up? How does that make you feel when you think about it, when you explore it? Like, you know what I mean? There's one thing I want to ask your
hmm,
experience in your expertise in, is intuition,
yes,
right? So how can someone, right? So how can someone tap into their intuition? Because I feel like over the years, as
yeah,
children, we're intuitive. Children are they're intuitive, right? Like, they're, in
yes,
my opinion, they're so intuitive, as being in tune with their bodies, in tune with their surroundings, right? But then I feel like over the years, as we get older, and as society dictates specific things, like on us or our parents or whatever, a lot of people tend to lose their connection to their intuition, in my opinion. I've personally,
yes,
my personal experience, I've lost my connection to my intuition at some point in my life, and then I was like, I just didn't feel, I felt out of place. Like, I really felt out of place. And then
yes,
I went on my journey to rediscover my connection with my intuition. And I, like, now I trust my feelings, I trust my gut. Like, just how I roll at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But how do people connect with that part of themselves, their intuition?
So I'm going to go on a limb here,
Sure.
but I would actually, this certainly isn't across the board. There, 7 billion people in the world, and everybody has a different experience. But what I have observed and experienced in myself, that the more connected I am to my body, which means the more I can feel it, the more I can be with whatever is happening in it, physically, sensationally, emotionally, energetically, the stronger my intuition is. So, and the less mystical it is. Like the less I feel like, oh, I have to burn incense and I have to do, take classes and I have to do this, that, and the other in order to achieve intuition, in order to achieve something that, as you're describing, is our birthright. Mm-hmm. And I would say, as we were saying, I mean, you can go out on the street and watch kids and in public, completely uninhibited, sort of flapping around with their bodies. I love that. I was in a mall last night and I was just watching these kids completely doing all kinds of weird shit with their bodies, like they're having a great time. Exactly. They're doing stuff. They're trying out different movements. They're, doing all kinds of stuff.
No filters.
No filters. And I believe that the reason why kids tend to be far more intuitive is partially because they have that freedom. It's inextricably related, is what I'm saying, that freedom of body. That said, there's people who fling their bodies all over the place and their intuition isn't necessarily open. And there's people who are super rigid in their bodies, though I wonder, intuition can be, a lot of people will go out of their bodies to get, like a channel, for example. Well, that's a bad example. And I'm not an expert in this field, but this is my experience. What comes to me when you ask me that is that I know that there's a difference between going out of your body. I totally take that back about channels, because I was talking earlier about really being in the body to be able to receive information. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like leaving the body, like out of body experience, or going out to get information or get intuitive guidance, for example, which can work totally well for people. I mean, lots of people do that. Lots of people pay people to do that for them. I've spent tons of money paying people to do that for me. So I'm not, dissing that at all. But when you talk about intuition that is available 24/7 to us, I believe the more we're able to tap into, for example, I mean, ultimately it's semantics. If somebody walks in the door and your stomach sort of clenches, is that intuition? You called it gut. I don't know. Or is it when all of a sudden somebody walks in the door and an image flashes through your head? Which stuff like that happens a lot. The question is, are we paying attention to it as it's happening? So there's all kinds of different intuitions that happen. Or somebody mentions, oh, I really want to introduce you to so-and-so. And you can have feeling. Actually, I got in an argument with a friend of mine a couple nights ago about this. Like, he was like, how can you've never even met the person. How do you know? Because my body immediately mentioned somebody and I immediately had the feeling in my body about somebody. I don't know, is that intuition? Is it just our body's brilliance that we know all kinds of stuff? Because the body isn't this linear, of course, we're, we're born and we live and breathe and die. So that's linear, so it seems. But, our body is, the more present we are in in its experience, time morphs, it shifts, and we have access to all kinds of, I believe, information. I don't know. Does this make sense to you? Is that your experience too? And the other thing I wanted to mention, as you were talking about how more and more you're feeling your feelings and your gut and your intuition, my guess is, from all the stuff you've said, is you've worked through a lot of your trauma.
Definitely.
And the more you've worked through your trauma, the more intuitive you've become.
Absolutely.
The more your body's available to you, the more you can feel your body. and the more intuitive you are. So that's very, it's very, I believe, correlated to intuition too. Though there are a lot of traumatized people who can be, again, super psychic and super intuitive, but they tend to leave their bodies for that information because the body's just too terrifying a place. You know?
Yeah. You brought up a really great point, because that is correct. I've gone through a lot of different modalities to deal with my trauma, so I can reconnect with my intuition. You're absolutely right, because I believe in my intuition internally. Like I believe that the source of my wisdom comes from the inside, not from the outside. Like, you know what I mean? I do believe in the universe and do believe the universe sends us message, but that's sort of like me tuning in, being we talked about this, like being the vessel to receive information, right? Yeah. It's just sort of like I'm connected with, but it has to start somewhere, right? In my opinion, like I agree.
That's my experience as well.
Right. Yes. So yeah, my experience is like I have to be connected with my body and my internal resources, and then from there I get to see things unfold externally, and I receive that as information, right? And so that's just sort of like how I don't know, just sort of, that's like how I
totally relate. And it's really touching me that you say that, because as you're talking, I'm getting the image, of course, a lot of religion. It shuts down the body. The body is shameful. The body will lead you astray. The body is sinful. You know, all this stuff. And what does that do? It cuts us off from being able to connect with God or the universe directly. And again, I feel like there's a huge correlation between how much are you within this own, you know, and a lot of people will call it your inner divinity or whatever, you know, so there's no internal, external. It's all part of the same system, really, the same circulation, you know, you could say, and that flow is enabling that to happen. Is that your experience, as opposed to I don't have a body and I'm sitting in my, you know, my little buttoned up straight jacket and I'm sitting in, and God is, I need somebody else to get to God for me, and you know, because I can't feel enough to feel my being a part of all of that, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Like my experience is like being connected with myself and everything around me.
Yes.
So I'm not like, a lot of people think that they're in their own individual. You are. I mean, we're all individual persons, but we're all connected to a bigger universe, and we all have, there's this collective consciousness that connects all of us human beings and beings on this planet together. That's my experience. That's just my experience. So we can't think like, oh, I'm not, you know, a good contribution. Well, every little thing that you do as a person, you're actually impacting your own surrounding, yourself, but then you're also impacting your own surrounding, which in turn impacts the whole world, right? It's like,
I agree with you. Right? I agree with you. I say to the, you know, the addict folks that I work with, and I don't even like using that term, that adjective, but I feel like they're the courageous ones, you know, who are doing it for all of us. You know, they're in the trenches there, and they're transforming, and they're working through not just their own individual trauma or the trauma of their whole family systems. They're working through the trauma of this planet.
Absolutely.
You know? So I agree with you, sister.
I love it.
Totally.
Yeah, we're all connected. And I want people to feel empowered that, you know, if you're not sure like what your purpose is, start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like just start with yourself, exploring yourself. Like once you're clear on that, like you're really making a difference for not only yourself, but also the people around you and the whole planet, like you said. And I do agree.
For sure. And, you know, this brings up the issue of how do I know what my purpose is? I mean, you know.
Right.
And here's what I say about that. First of all, I think our purpose is evolving. I'll speak for myself.
Okay.
Like in a way, I could say what I'm doing and saying right now with you in this conversation. You could go back to when I first injured myself when I was 3 years old, or when, my own trauma or whatever, I could go back to go, okay, I can see that all of that, even though I took 12 years out as a jewelry designer and I had another career for a bunch of years, I ended up, the universe kind of ejected me out of that career, and here I am back again to this long trajectory, though it's still it's informed by that 12 years of supposedly a different purpose. That also was served. I tend to view purpose as like a tapestry where there are threads, and everything we've done is what we're going to do. Everything we've done informs what we're here to do, because it's our life, it's what we've done. So it's what's made us who we are, but in terms of how to actually call it, hang out a shingle, and what you put on your business card, and how you actually hone it into something that's saleable, that's another issue. But if you start to look at, again, once you're that little free body full of intuition, what did you love to do? So much of that information is right there. What did you love to do before anybody messed with you? Basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
What are your gifts? Like that, you've got to really clarify for yourself, what are your gifts? What were they before you decided, you were worthless, for example, or before you decided that you got really good at crunching numbers because that's what your dad wanted you to do, when really you were an amazing violinist, or or you loved making pies when you were a little kid and you're the best damn pie maker on the planet. Like what, follow the breadcrumbs, like where was that stuff? And then sometimes you have to excavate back to it because of those obstacles, but also all the stuff, even all those obstacles we struggle with, that has honed, like all the crap I've been through in my life has made me capable of being more with my body, in my body, of my body, and being with you right now.
Definitely.
All of it.
Definitely.
I'm able to now be with you and speak to whoever's listening to this because of all that stuff. So is it just that, okay, being a somatic counselor and body therapist and trauma specialist and blah, 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 is that really my purpose? I don't know. Ultimately, I feel like my purpose is to be more of what we're talking about, is how can I be more and more of who and what I am, so that more God can flow through me, of me, and what I mean by God is whatever this mystery is, whatever this love is. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's so many, and how do you make money? That's another question, So there's just so many levels and layers to purpose. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so great. Yeah. You said a lot of great stuff, Allie, like tapping into that, discovering it, rediscovering. Like, I feel you have to be, if you're on this journey, like our viewers, like if you're on this journey of discovering your purpose, I feel like take it as like a fun, exciting scavenger hunt. I love how you said,
I love that.
Right?
Totally. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because
And
I love how you said, like, go track the breadcrumbs, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
I love that you said that.
Because there's messages all the time that are coming in our path. Like all of a sudden, Debbie, suddenly said, Zina and Ali, you got to meet each other, and here we are. A week ago, I wouldn't have guessed it. I didn't see this coming,
Absolutely.
And I do think that all those kinds of messages and opportunities are coming towards us, guiding us. And part of it is, who was it, Einstein, or who said, that there's really one question, whether you believe, I'm so butchering this, like whether you believe the universe is friendly or not. I mean, that is a huge question. And if you do come to believe, after all one's personal trauma, that actually the universe is friendly, you can start asking it for guidance too. I mean, again, is it whether it's coming from your own physical body or the body of the world, it's like, what are the signs? And that's what I wanted to say. Just in terms of practicality, I think I am so for having a trade. Like I did that. I went to my first year in college at Barnard, my first year, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, totally lost,
Oh man.
Spending tons of my parents' money to be, flailing around. So I left school and I became a massage therapist when I was 18, 19, something like that.
Mm.
Because I knew that when I went back to school, which I did, a year and a half later, I went back to school and did a whole degree on the body and blah, blah, blah. I knew that I wanted to have a way to earn a living that wouldn't pervert my studies and my exploration of what I wanted to eventually do. And it just so happens that being a massage therapist and developing my own technique and body work and highly effective way of working with the body ended up melding and merging with my larger purpose.
Yeah.
But I think that everybody, I so believe, if I were, queen of the universe, I would really, or the earth, the planet Earth anyway, I would so hope that people get a trade that can earn you money, that you like doing, while you're while you're exploring what your purpose is, so that you have, you can buy yourself some time and experience while you're waiting on it to arrive.
Yeah. And I agree, because the way for you or for a person to discover what they like and they don't like is to experience it, do it, and see if you like it. And if you like it, ask yourself, well, what did you like about this trade or this profession? If you didn't like it, ask yourself, what did you not like about this trade and profession? And see what are the possibilities, what you can create out of that information, right? And then go from there.
I was just going to say, you're pointing out such a great point, is there's a big difference between thinking you like something, it's how something looks on paper, including how much money it's going to make you, and what kind of actual daily experience it's going to be, which is exactly what you're talking about. So yeah.
And I'm all for like making money doing what you love, or like, I think in my opinion, like, we all want to make money, right? It's like that's just because we're in this materialistic world where, the only way to, like, no, I don't want to say the only way, but we have to make money. That's just how it is, right? But I feel like the way to make money is to align yourself and your skills with in the stuff that you love, and find a way to monetize that, or find a way to make money doing that. And it could be something that may not be your traditional job. It could be more like freelance work. It could be, there's just so many options out there, but you have to be on this, you have to be curious. You have to be adventurous and explore, right? And just see like what works, what doesn't work, what did you like, what did you not like, just be out there and do that. And I think a lot of times we put ourselves in our own prisons, like the prisons of our mind, the prisons of our bodies, and or whatever limitations we inflict on ourselves that don't inhibit us to really go out and explore what's out there. And we feel like this is just the only way to do it. And it's not. It really isn't. It's like you just have to like people make assessments like, oh, I can't do it. Well, have you tried? Like, you know what I mean? Like, have you like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes we make assessments without even going through the experience of seeing what will unfold for us, right? Because of whatever fear, right?
I totally agree. I would just add to that being an entrepreneur is not for everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
It just isn't. It takes, it's a pretty, well, this is the expression I'm hearing, balls to the wind sort of way of life. There's a lot of, any entrepreneur will describe more or less that I've ever heard, read an article of, or listened to, or known in my life, myself included. Boy, it's a roller coaster. There's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of embarrassment at times when, oops, that one didn't work out. Let me go on to the next one and see what happens there. Some people are much better suited to finding an environment where they feel held and they're not the ones with their butt on the line. You know, they have a job to keep, but they're not the ones having to be either the visionary or the risk taker. So I just wanted to also put that out there, because I think a lot of times purpose can seem sort of synonymous with, you know, making your own way or creating your own company or your own, you know, gadget or something like that. And it's, you know, I just wanted to add in there the value of collaboration and finding, which are part of the breadcrumbs. You know, it's like who shows up in my life that either may know of a company that would love the likes of me, or who might want to do something with me. So partnerships have, you know, that's that's challenging too. You know, it can be really tricky, like how to actualize what your purpose is once you know what it is you even want to do, or as you say, discover it as you go.
Yeah.
You know, trial and error. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, definitely.
An age-old, you know, experience of,
yeah.
That one
It's
wasn't.
never too late. It's never too late to discover what.
Hey, I've got a couple more careers in me coming up in my dotage, I hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm the
Yeah.
same way. Like I feel like I've reinvented myself so many
Yeah.
times. I'm also right now I'm reinventing myself, and it's just part of growth. You know, as you're evolving, as you're growing, you're reinventing yourself. Like you're taking yourself on, and you're taking yourself to a different level, and that requires. It's very risky for sure. It's scary, really scary. It's very vulnerable because you're putting yourself out there. But the rewards on the other side, once you go through that metamorphosis, is so fulfilling.
Well, you just brought up such an important word and experience, which is vulnerability. And we just got it when we were talking earlier about obstacles. We talked a bit about safety, but ultimately, how much vulnerability can we tolerate in every way? I mean, this is super vulnerable right now, what you and I are doing. It might feel really vulnerable for people to be listening to this right now, because it might be pushing their experience of reality. You know, it might be so inspiring that it feels vulnerable, because then people are like, oh my God, my purpose has just revealed itself one step closer. You know, there's so much vulnerability, and can we tolerate it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I feel we connect with ourselves and with other people when we are vulnerable. And I think a lot of times, because you know, when we go through traumas in life, we want to protect ourselves, we want to disconnect ourselves because we don't want to get hurt. Right. Because I mean, really, like I found myself in that category where I was just like, you know, disconnecting myself because I just didn't want to get hurt anymore. And I got hurt, like I really got hurt. And once I felt like, for me, like once I let go of that, like no one has the power to hurt me. No one has that. No one really has that power. Why am I giving away my power? You know what I'm saying? Like that's like I'm grounded where I am, and I'm committed to something. So whatever happens, I just have to deal with it and navigate around it, and it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? It's okay. No one died. No one's gonna die. Like, you know what I mean? Everything's fine, you know? Whereas, like, if you asked me a few years ago, I would have never done this. Like, what I'm doing right now is definitely outside my comfort zone, right? But if a few years ago, that would have been a no question. Like, I would have been like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. Like, but like, again, we're evolving, right? Like we're growing, we're evolving, you know, we're taking ourselves on at a different level. And we just, you know, and I feel like when you're more mission driven and you're vision driven, you are willing to take that risk and let go of that story that you have about you being hurt, you know, because it's not about you. Like for me, it's not about me. It's about the message. It's about the vision. It's about the greater good. Like it's really about like something bigger than myself. Right. So
I totally agree with that. On a good day, my experience is what you just beautifully described. On a bad day, not so much.
I agree.
I do get hurt, and life can be super painful at times. Definitely. You know, and I think for me anyway, that's part of accepting it. You know, it's like life can be super painful, and people do die, and you know, and we're gonna die, and not to be a bummer, but that is part of the vulnerability is, it is exquisite and terrifying and everything in between. And but I also think, through different failures or different pains or all that, we hopefully the more we stay open to that vulnerability, the more we grow. And we can think, well, 2 years ago I would have been devastated by something, or when I was 12 I was devastated by something. And so we can think, spend the next 30 years protecting ourselves from something that at 12 we couldn't handle. But at 32 or 42 or 52 or whatever, you can handle it now, but we don't trust that we can now. So I think it's also just keeping that sense of things ever evolving. And sometimes, we fall. And as they say, gotta just keep getting up and dusting yourself off and
move. Move forward.
And depending on our friends to help us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do you have any last words that you want to share or contribute before we wrap up, Allie?
We talked about so much. My goodness. Here, all the way out and back again. Let's see. Do I have anything else? I think the word that I'm hearing and feeling is gentleness. Just so hard. I mean, I'm somebody who's always been so hard on myself and so in a hurry, since I was very young. Like I want to contribute. Where is what I'm here to contribute, and put so much pressure on my life and been so afraid that I'm failing at my purpose. Just makes me sad in my heart how much I've suffered about my fear of failing my purpose, as if it's a train that you can like miss getting on, and then you're screwed and the universe is screwed. And, like I've spent a lot of my life with that belief and that tyranny, internal tyranny, So I guess now in my mid 50s, I just feel like, wow, I just wish I had been gentler on myself in the process, as you had expressed on this scavenger hunt and on this strange blue-green ball that we're all on. It's like, who knows ultimately, what we're really doing here. Just living, breathing, and dying could be our purpose, and whatever we experience, who knows if, becoming the best darn pie maker is really what our purpose is or not. Maybe it was just loving as many people as we can and receiving as much love as we can while we're here. So I guess that's my parting words, is just to try and be more gentle in the mystery of what our purpose even is.
That's so beautiful. That's so touching. Thank you. And I can attest, because I'm also very, very hard on myself. And and I can definitely, I resonate with that 100%. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure having you, Allie. And your contribution is amazing. Love what you shared. And for the viewers, Allie talked about the free gift. I will be including the link to that in the email associated with the video. And also right underneath the video, there'll be a button that says access your free gift. So thank you, Allie, for that.
Thank you.
I love the exercise. I love what we did, the meditation exercise, the getting grounded. It's amazing. So thank you for your contribution. Thank you for accepting my request to be on this interview.
Thank you for asking me. It's been a huge pleasure and an honor, really.
Same here. Thank you. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in. And we really appreciate your time. And we look forward to connecting on the next video. Have a good one. Thank you, Allie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.